The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Monday before the big storm.
Yep, and public service announcement. The mayor has declared a parking ban in effect as of 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah.
So remember, there is no parking on the fire hydrant side of the street.
At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, even though the snow's not getting here till 10 or 11 tonight, but that's not to make extra money, to get all you people that can't come home, leave work in the middle of the day to move your car. So, but that's got nothing to do. It's like Providence. All those fines had nothing to do with revenue.
That's it. It's not a revenue. And remember, if your vehicle is towed, you have to pay the tow company before you can get your vehicle back. And then you got to pay the fines to the city. So,
yeah.
I mean, the fine, I think it's $45 to park on the...
Yeah, I think it's $95 in Providence. They're getting hammered over there. They made like $1 million in one day on those parking.
It's like $100 or $125 for the tow.
Yeah.
So
you're a little muffled, CJ. Your mic on the ground or something?
No, it's right here.
All right, it's probably just a tiny bit low, but
not anymore. It's not.
Yeah, much better. Yeah, so the parking ban's on at 3, even though the snow's not coming till 10 or 11. So just everybody leave work and move your cars. You know, unfortunately, that's the way it is. So,
well, you know, it's going to be an interesting thing to see how many people are actually towed.
Nice that it made the Herald News anyway. The parking ban made the Herald News at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, because he announced this yesterday.
Yeah, we knew that yesterday. And of course, as I was watching the weather, it said it's not moving in until very late tonight. There will be absolutely no problem with the commute or anything else like that. We have a parking ban.
I mean, even Somerset put their parking ban on for 7 o'clock tonight. So
yeah, well, I mean, that's a little bit more reasonable, but and Somerset's normally one of the worst places. They get, if one flake of snow, they start tagging. And
yep. And just for other alerts, all BCC locations are closed tomorrow due to the inclement weather. And so that announcement just was released a few moments ago. All BCC locations are closed tomorrow.
In anticipation of, and if it takes a hard ride out in the Atlantic Ocean, everybody's got the day off, so.
Mm-hmm. And we just received notification that there is no feed on Comcast. I'm not sure why, because I can see it here, but some people may not be getting a Comcast feed.
Oh, God. Comcast.
So it'll be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. All of a sudden, my phone is going bananas with text messages. Just not sure what's happening here.
Everybody wants to know where the show is.
Yeah, that could be it. That definitely could be it. But it's. I mean, even the phone's ringing off the hook now, so it's getting better and better.
Yeah, well, it's pre-storm. You know, we get. You know, we lead the way.
Yeah, we lead the way. It's true.
We have technical difficulties even before the storm gets here, so don't worry about it.
You have to admit. Hey, did you hear about what happened over at the building committee for the new school?
Yeah.
State Representative Carole Fiola was removed from the building committee.
Yes.
And guess who was appointed?
Wow.
State Representative Alan Silvia. Not even in his district.
Yeah.
Not even in his district.
Well, we don't care. Because she's bad-mouthing him.
Yeah, and according to the mayor, she claims that Fiola was bad-mouthing his administration and the city to the people in Boston. She doesn't have to bad-mouth you, Mr. Mayor. She doesn't have to bad-mouth the city. It does it for itself. You do it for yourself.
And I like the quote, she's not been cooperating, providing for the mission of the city of Fall River, unquote, said Carole. I confirmed what she said and made my decision. Of course, I guess one of your pals that's going to be running against her had nothing to do with this precursor of you throwing out the fact that she's not doing her job for the constituents, her constituents in Fall River.
Yep.
No, there's no political undercurrent here, because we don't know that yet, do we? We don't know that one of his political allies is going to be running against Representative Fiola.
Well,
So,
it's very interesting that...
Isn't it? Go ahead.
It's very interesting to see the political kiss asses
Yeah.
all lining up.
Yeah, yeah. They're long before the campaign begins, they're beginning the disinformation campaign to make her look like she hasn't been doing her job, and so it's pretty good. But I mean, let's look at it. We've got a mayor that, unfortunately, well, it's not only him. Look, I'm not going to just, I'll cast a wide net here. Everybody in our government today, they're all like millennials. They can't stand it if you don't, they never realize the concept that just because you don't particularly like somebody, or you don't want to have a beer with them or a burger, that if it's your job, you work. That's what's happened in Washington. The Republicans and the Democrats used to actually like each other, and even though they played their part, because it is a play up there, they're full of crap. The people who depend on the demographic of the working people, they were the Democrats, and the Republicans were the rich guys, and fundamentally they were both monarchs who made these gestures and exchanged fire in the House and in the Senate, and then afterwards they'd all go out and get drunk together and laugh at what they were doing to the people back in their home turf. The fact is that that's the way it always was, but you can say it's kind of disingenuous, but that's almost one of the sub-definitions of politics and politicians. But they actually did get something done occasionally, unlike today. And today it's like, oh, if you're a Democrat, we don't talk to you, we dislike you. We dislike you, really dislike you, not only for show, but we don't associate with each other. We dislike each other. And now we have a man, anybody who disagrees with him or in his perception badmouths him, which I assume the definition of that is not worship him as the Messiah, but that's it. You're gone. You're gone. If you're one of his sign holders or his political lackeys, you get stipends and pay raises and new jobs, and you slide all over the place. But if you're one of his political enemies, you're done. And this is going to get very interesting. I'm going to be very, very interested to look at this race for Representative Fiola's district, because I think it's going to be fun, because when we see the players involved, we're going to it's going to be pretty obvious where the lines are drawn.
Well, interesting that you should say that, because I received a phone call from an individual who had applied for a position on one of the city's boards or commissions, whatever it may have been. And this individual was told, if you want to be on the board or commission, you got to make a campaign contribution to the mayor. Now, as far as I remember, that's illegal.
Yeah.
And I said, well, file a complaint. Well, no, because I might be able to get a position some other time if I make a campaign contribution. I said, well, then you perpetuate the problem.
That's right, self-interest. Oh, the hell with right. Let's just do what's going to benefit me.
Remember, that's an allegation. I mean, people can say what they want if they don't get what they want. So,
yeah.
I don't have proof. I don't have the smoking gun or
Not that it doesn't go
tape.
on.
Not that it doesn't go on, but it always happens.
But it's just disturbing that, bad mouthing the city. That's I'd like to see again. They protect these statements with their life. We saw how difficult it was to extract those telephone conversations and emails, because they say that everything's on the up and up, but the judge who read them basically said they were running it like their own private company. But I'd like to know what exactly Representative Fiola said to badmouth, the city. I mean, obviously she's entitled to her opinion on this administration and its effectiveness. However, I don't know if she badmouthed the city. Has she not delivered for this city? I haven't heard anything, and that's the problem with Boston. We only hear this, we get this stuff by, it filters down, because what goes on in Boston kind of stays in Boston. We don't know what goes on behind those as they wander the corridors of the State House. But I don't know. This is going to shape up, because we already know who's putting out feelers to run against Fiola. So it's going to be pretty interesting.
There are no secrets in Fall River.
There's no secret. Yeah, there's really no secrets anywhere. And I've got to get one in. I've got to go a little bit national news here.
Go ahead.
No, I was. It just bothers me, because we talk a lot about some of this stuff, and this is personal opinion. This isn't. But I saw I think it was Florida, in the national news. I saw a woman. Maybe it wasn't Florida. I don't know. Wherever it was the issue, not the location. About the way this has evolved. I guess a woman got hit head-on by a person who had passed out from an opium, from a heroin overdose, and she was very upset because the judge let him go on his own personal recognizance.
Oh, that was Rhode Island.
Was it Rhode Island?
That was Rhode Island, I think,
right,
yeah.
Rhode Island, yeah. Well, it was probably Channel 10 news, because I watched that a lot, and I watched the national news on 10 or 12. But she was justifiably upset, but then again, was it something you didn't expect? I mean, there are no consequences for anybody in this society anymore. We've made drug addicts a protected class. They have no consequences for anything they do, because they got a disease. He didn't put that needle in his arm. Somebody else did. Society did. His depression did. But he got behind of a wheel of an automobile. Drunk driving and driving impaired, as far as I'm concerned, and it's only my opinion, every one of those clowns should be prosecuted for premeditated murder. Because they got behind a motor vehicle impaired and drove it. And when they kill somebody or hit somebody, they should be prosecuted. What's going to happen to this guy? I'm interested. Are they going to let him go? Oh, you're another poor drug addict. Okay, go run into somebody else in another couple of weeks. Don't worry about it. We'll send you to a treatment center. We'll make sure that we appropriate another $25 million to take care of you while you do this for most of your life. Okay? They got a problem. And I don't believe it's a disease, and I believe my co-host here actually testified before the country of Canada about this stuff, and it just really bothers me. A very, very, very close friend of mine was killed by a drunk driver many years ago, and he was one of the most influential people in the state. Was a tremendous union guy. Dusty Allwood, who's the head of the PFFM, was killed by a drunk driver. So it's head on. Coming home from dinner with an old high school friend, and his wife and his friend's wife were both in intensive care for months and months. They survived, but both, he and his friend, succumbed to the accident. So if I don't have much tolerance for people who get behind the wheel when they're drunk or when they're impaired, that's just my prerogative. But I mean, it's just to me, it's just an indication of why we have so many problems in this society. There's no consequences for anything. They find a reason to make an excuse. They now, everything's a disease. If you do something wrong, you never did it. It's a disease. The psychologists and psychiatrists will end up giving it some kind of name. It's amazing how in our period when we were colonizing and expanding out to the west, and all those people drove across in covered wagons and got attacked by Indians and built a cabin in the middle of nowhere and held off the hostiles and created a nation. It's amazing. I don't understand it. There was absolutely none of these maladies that existed. There were, you know, it wasn't attention deficit disorder. They didn't have time. They were working from sun up to sundown to make a life. And when they did something wrong, there were consequences. So if I'm a little, you know, call me old-fashioned, but I'll tell you what's going on today, we are feeding the beast. And when this country continues to get worse and worse, it's because of what we let our government do. You know, it's just crazy. And I'm looking forward with bated breath to see what kind of, when this guy does come to trial, I'm betting they send him to a rehab. But as far as I'm concerned, what he did was premeditated murder. If he would have killed that woman, he would have been guilty of murder.
Yeah, vehicular homicide is what they would have hit him with. But
that's right. But he can't because he was impaired and he's got a disease.
One of our viewers is asking, whatever happened to the mayor's SUV? Mr. Mayor, people want to know what happened to your SUV. The viewer also said, interestingly enough, I asked Pam, obviously I think he's talking about Pamela Liberté LeBeau, and she never answered me. Maybe she doesn't know either, because I don't know what happened to the SUV.
I don't think anybody knows.
Nobody knows what happened to the SUV. What happened to the SUV? Was that the SUV that got into the car accident on North Main Street being driven by somebody else?
Uh-oh. Wait a minute.
Hey, I'm just making possibilities here, because I mean that's the only SUV I know of that we haven't seen anymore. So where did the SUV go? It's very
a body shop.
Yeah, it's at a body shop somewhere. Probably Carl's Collision.
And there'll be no record of that repair.
Yeah, there'll be no record anywhere.
But we'll see.
Hey, another quasi-streetscapes project.
Yeah.
Old 2nd Street is getting a facelift. First off, because people are so ignorant and rude in Fall River, they were using Old 2nd Street, which is basically a walkway, as a parking lot. And it required the city to put up Jersey barriers so that people can't park on that parking area, in that walkway. But what it did end up creating was parking spaces for police vehicles. So you can't park there, but the police department can. So, makes for an interesting life.
Well, yeah.
But where's this money going to come from? We can't afford a high school that we have to bond for it, and we have to have a tax override. But we can afford to put up fences and furniture.
Is all this creative? I'm reading it. Creative fencing. That's a pretty new title. Creative fencing and planting, and a planting strip with irrigation built in. That sounds like it's going to cost a few. But isn't that, was that to replace the, is that to replace the, give somebody a chance to sit outside in that area, not in the area where they removed the benches for a certain investor who didn't want the riffraff sitting out in front of his building?
I guess so. They wanted to move it behind the buildings.
Now they're going to hide them. They're going to.
Well, then again, you gotta hide the poor and undeserving. We can't have the poor and undeserving right out there where people can see them.
Yeah, I just got a text about. Yeah, it's in the article that the redevelopment authority owns a part of that land. I'm not sure exactly how part, but who owns it?
We know that the redevelopment authority owns it, but the redevelopment authority is part of Fall River.
That's right, but the fact is that it's just the way things go. Just pay attention. If you own a building and you're in, you can get all the benches removed so the riffraff doesn't hang around you. Doesn't hang around, and we'll stick the bench in somewhere else and spend money. And we've got to spend our money on things that are actually going to help people, like maybe apprenticeship programs and job training and stuff like that to get people back to work, because we can see the handwriting on the wall. We can see what's going on, and it's going on from top to bottom. And on a national front, I guess You know, there was a lot of talk yesterday on Meet the Press about the upcoming meeting and whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And you know, with all you know, trying to give all the points, you know, I think somebody brought up a good point. It wasn't on Meet the Press because they were very upset with what Trump called the media, but with all, you know, a lot of people don't like him, and he is, you know, he's obviously not a politician the way he handles himself. But we got to bring in another thing. I don't know if anybody paid attention, and I'm sure you saw it, CJ. But there were a few major programs on about Sweden and about the immigration and what it's doing to Sweden, which is normally one of the most stable countries around. Sweden actually is the only place, and I don't know if it's still true, but when I was doing research on it, Sweden was the only place where you retired and got more money when you retired than you worked. Extremely high tax rates, but they have socialized medicine. The medicine doesn't cost you anything, and people pay into that tax system because they realize they're going to get a benefit. And what happens is when you retire, you're not scratching, trying to, you know, hoping you don't live too long and run out of money. But Sweden's having a major problem. They brought the immigrants in, and now there's things that are very rare in that area of the world. They're getting a lot of violence, a lot of shootings, a lot of gun violence and robberies and all these things, and they actually had to step back and take a second look at the controlling immigration and doing more vetting. And you know, I don't see the media jumping on and saying, well, you know something, maybe we didn't like the way he was going to do it, but maybe he did have a point about controlling immigration and vetting them a lot better, because we're seeing what happens in all those countries. There are issues in all the European countries that took a, not that I'm against bringing in refugees, but I am against bringing them in without any type of vetting. Just open the gates and let them pile in. And I think it's well worth looking at.
I just received a text message about the missing SUV. The missing SUV was actually seen yesterday at the Men Who Can Cook event at the Liberal Club. So I guess the SUV has appeared.
Did it have any dents in it? Texter, did it have any? They
didn't say that. They didn't say that, but at least we now know that the SUV is still around.
Yes.
See how fast you get information when you're on the air? People are constantly giving us the information.
Watching, that's right. And then we also have to deal now with some. This issue will resurrect itself because we've been told that there's possible litigation about the charter pending, and that's something that's going to come to a forefront. And
well, interestingly enough, I was actually provided by an attorney, and I'd like to thank the attorney, an 1895 decision of the Supreme Judicial Court, which may put the charter in question because that decision does not allow for the limitation of initiative petitions. They can't say you have to have 20% or 10% or 5%. They say that the voter's right is paramount in that decision. I sent you a copy of that decision, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, you did. I looked at it, and it's like, yeah, well, you know, maybe in 1895 they actually looked at the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Constitution.
Yeah.
You know, and said the vote, you know, that they're answerable to us at all times. And look, that charter really needs to be cleared up. You know, it is not acceptable to have a document we paid $40,000 for this massive ambiguity. Everybody that reads it's got a different opinion. Now you got the chairman Mioza giving his opinion. Well, your opinion's not. It's an opinion. You can't testify to intent because the intent doesn't. It's a law. It's our Constitution. It was poorly written. We saw a whole bunch of contradictions in that thing when we went over it, and now you got people who are on that committee now wanting to take it and getting it enforced. But in order to enforce it, we really truly need a court to review the document. And actually what we really need is to throw the whole thing out and get a new one. But the fact is we really need to stop with the opinions and let's get a decision. Because Joe Macy, as much as he'd like to think he's still a judge, he's not. And his opinion as corporate counsel, as an attorney, is just an opinion. Mike Mioza's is just an opinion. CJ's opinion and my opinion are just that, opinions. The only person that can determine whose opinion is right is a court. And obviously in 1895, the SJC said that the voters are paramount, and they technically still are. And a lot of these things in his charter, we gave him a pretty hefty paycheck for writing a really poor document, and it's being proved every single day.
I agree. Hey, South Coast Rail is back in the news again. They had a hearing of some type at UMass Dartmouth, and now they have an excuse on why people leave Fall River after they graduate college.
Oh.
Alan Silvia of Fall River said he wanted to see train service open up employment opportunities in the Boston area. He said that when he graduated from UMass Dartmouth 6 years ago, he found that most entry-level jobs in the field were in Boston. But with the long distance and a recent grad's unreliable vehicle, making the drive was unrealistic. Only by moving in with his girlfriend and her family in Ashland could he accept a job, he said. Well, there you go.
There's another excuse. Yeah, I guess, if you're going to drive into Boston every day, and you're going to get a bigger salary, you might be able to afford a better car.
Yeah.
If you're going to get a good job. How many people do we know that went to Boston every day for their entire career? We had a former city councilor that used to take the bus up there every morning, and another one that took the train. We've had a lot of people go to Boston. We have a lot of people that commute. A lot of people who work in Boston commute back to not Fall River, because we can't keep anybody, and that's a one instance where he said that. But then somebody else living, like a millennial living in somebody else's basement, not his own. But the reality is that there are people. 99% of the people who work in Boston during the day leave. They go to Swampscott and Marblehead and even New Hampshire. Some of them live in New Hampshire, and commuting is that's not, they can say that's the reason people moved out of Fall River, just like they said, well, the reason they moved to Newton is schools. Well, yeah, if you got school-age children, you look at the education, but the people with no school-age children who live in Newton are living in Newton because look at the crime rate. Look at the number of people below the poverty level, which is virtually non-existent. Look at all the amenities they have, 10,000 more stores and restaurants and stuff, and of course it's proximity to Boston. So it's not just about that. We can't keep people in this community because we don't invest in the community. We invest in facades and we invest in lipstick to put on the pig, but nobody's fixing the pig. And that's the problem. Well,
that's very much the truth. But interestingly enough, Midleboro, which is where the train's going to go through, they're a little upset because it says that the DOT is adding too few trains and that the trains would be standing room only. Department of Transportation says that their double-decker trains would be used to help alleviate crowding. So we're going to have double-decker trains. We're going to look like England with the double-decker buses.
Yeah, and like I said, don't hold your breath. It's not going to be here for a little while. So stay angry, and we might not see you Wednesday.
Don't know what the weather's going to hold. All we know is
we didn't even see you today because I think our feed was screwed up. So
well, no, we've got a feed. It's just some of them don't.
If you're watching tonight, you'll get the whole show.
Yep. And remember, parking ban goes into effect at 3 o'clock. And tomorrow, BCC is closed, all campuses.
And check all your batteries and get some food and,
get your milk and bread.
Get milk, bread, and flashlight batteries and get ready to hunker down tomorrow.
Have a great day and stay angry.
Gas for the snowblower.